At 2:17 a.m., his smartwatch lit up on my nightstand like a tiny lighthouse. The message preview was just 3 words, room 406. Same. The problem? My husband Evan was snoring beside me. I'd put his watch there earlier because he'd fallen asleep on the couch after wrapping a client call. Our 8-year-old, Zoe, was asleep down the hall, and I was halfway through folding laundry when he shuffled to bed, murmuring about Q4 and an early meeting. Then, 2:17. Room 406. Same. I told myself not to. I told myself I was tired, paranoid, making patterns out of nothing. I turned the face of the watch down like a guilty coin. Then his phone, face down on the dresser, buzzed too. I stared at the ceiling, counted 12 slow breaths, and finally broke the one rule we'd never said out loud. I picked it up. The passcode used to be our anniversary, April 9th. He changed it 6 months ago for work. I tried Zoe's birthday. No. His old jersey number. No. I thought about the one thing he never forgot anymore, his running streak. He hit 200 days last Friday, always posts them. I tried 0200. No. Then I tried the day he suddenly started running at lunch instead of after work, 0613. The screen blinked open. Messages from S. Torres, vendor. Except vendors don't send winking selfies from a hotel bathroom. Vendors don't write front desk under my name. Key waiting. Vendors don't add a heart emoji after I brought your favorite. I scrolled and scrolled until the room was too quiet to breathe. 7 months of can't wait and still tasting you and you're worth the risk. Photos. A receipt snapshot with the corner of his hand in frame. Same little scar from the time he sliced a bagel wrong. I put the phone back exactly where it was. My hands were shaking like I'd downed 5 espressos on an empty stomach. Evan shifted, rolled toward me, threw an arm over my waist the way he used to do when we were still us. I stared at the wall until the dark thinned into gray. At 6, I made pancakes for Zoe and cut them into hearts because she likes it when I do that. Evan walked in freshly shaved, kissed Zoe's head, kissed my cheek and smelled like the new cologne I didn't buy. Big day, he said, grabbing a mug. Don't wait up. Client dinner. Where? I asked, too casual. Downtown. Mercer's, he said, naming the place that booked up 3 weeks in advance. On a Tuesday? He didn't even blink. They squeezed us in. Big deal, I'll text you. After school drop-off, I parked 2 blocks from our house and sat in the car with both hands on the steering wheel like it was keeping me from floating away. The part that hurt wasn't even the sex. It was the normalcy. That he could plan a whole second life and still remember to take out the recycling. That he could laugh with Zoe about her science project and then book room 406 like he was ordering takeout. I found her in 10 minutes. Sophia Torres, project manager on LinkedIn, mutual contacts with Evan's company, a public Instagram full of rooftop cocktails, neon hotel bar lights, and a very specific habit of geotagging places 2 hours after leaving them. 3 months back, there she was, a blurry story clip from the lobby of the Alder, the boutique hotel 4 blocks from Mercer's. The caption, best nights are the ones you don't plan dizzy. I took screenshots until my phone cautioned me about storage. I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. I needed facts. I opened our joint credit card app. Between the grocery runs and Target receipts, there it was, Alder Hotel, 3 separate Tuesday charges over the last 2 months, always around 10 p.m., always paired with a late-night lift, never the parking garage he normally uses. And then, last Friday, Mercer's. 2 entrees, 1 dessert, a bottle I knew he could pronounce only because a sommelier had once said it first. I called Maya. Maya is the kind of friend who answers with what happened, instead of hello. We met freshman year in a dorm laundry room at 2 a.m. and never stopped rescuing each other. I told her everything, starting with the watch and ending with the charges. I expected you're overthinking or talk to him. Instead, she said, very calmly, okay. What do you want to do? I don't know. It came out small. I want to not be crazy. I want this to be work stuff that looks like other stuff and for him to be stupid but not cruel. Do you want the truth or the feeling of safety? She asked. I want both. You won't get both tonight, she said. But you can get the truth. We made a plan, and by we, I mean Maya made it while I tried to remember how to breathe. If Evan said Mercer's, I'd call and confirm the reservation. If there wasn't one, we'd know. If there was, we'd ask for a special seating request. Maya explained it like a football play. When he arrived, I'd already be in the room. But not alone. Because here's the part one didn't expect. I found Sophia's last name from her LinkedIn, then her Facebook, then a tagged photo at a kid's birthday party. She wasn't some untethered fantasy. She had a life, a son old enough for a soccer uniform. And in a couple of the pictures, a man whose presence was casual and familiar. No wedding photos. But a caption gave him away. Sunday stew with the Campos crew. Nico's favorite. Uncle? Brother? Husband? I clicked through friends until I found Marco Campos with exactly one public post in the last year. New job. Same city. He worked nights 3 blocks from Mercer's. I stared at his profile picture, a guy with kind eyes and tired shoulders, and felt a new kind of anger, cooler and steadier. This wasn't just about me. This was an ecosystem of lies, and everyone was breathing the same bad air. At 3 p.m., I called Mercer's. "Hi," I said, injecting a little fluster. "My husband might have set a reservation for tonight under the name Evan Reed. I'm planning a surprise." A beat. Then the hostess read it back. 8 p.m. Table for 2. I thanked her and swallowed the acid climbing my throat. The hostess asked, polite and neutral, if I wanted to request anything special for the table. "Yes," I said. "Could we do the small alcove off the main room? The one with the frosted glass?" He proposed there. He didn't. We'd eloped in a courthouse with flickering lights and a vending machine coffee after his dad's diagnosis. But the hostess loved it. "Consider it done," she chirped. Maya texted, "I'm off at 6. I'll drive." At 7:45, I stood in Mercer's bathroom, palms flat on cool marble, wearing the navy dress Evan loved because it looked like you mean business but also like you can ruin someone. I looked like I had been ruined and stitched back together by a beginner. I practiced smiling in the mirror until my face cooperated. At 7:58, the hostess led me to the alcove. Frosted glass. Linen napkins. A candle that smelled like citrus and something expensive. My hands didn't shake anymore. At 8:03, my phone buzzed under the table. "Maya, he just walked in." "No Sophia yet. He's checking his watch." I typed with my heart in my throat. "When she arrives, give me 15 seconds. At 8:06, a shadow crossed the glass. Another. The hostess's voice, then Evan's, low and smooth, the tone he saves for clients and women he wants to impress. My name was a stone in my mouth. I waited for the second shadow to take the last 2 steps. Then I lit the fuse I'd been building all day. "Marco?" I called softly, standing as the frosted shapes froze outside our booth. Right on time. Maya had found him on his break in a coffee shop across the street and told him what I'd told her. He'd said nothing for a long time. Then he'd nodded once and followed us to Mercer's like a man choosing the pain he could live with over the lie he couldn't. Outside the glass, 3 people stopped breathing at once. "Happy Tuesday, Evan," I said, my voice even. "Shall we all sit?" Evan's shape hovered on the other side of the frosted glass, the blurred outline of his shoulders lifting, squaring. I saw him do that before big pitches and apologies he didn't mean. The second shadow slid into place beside him, smaller, hair up, a purse strap cutting over the shoulder. My mouth formed the name I'd been training it to say all day. Sophia. Except when the hostess pulled the glass aside with a little flourish, it wasn't Sophia. It was Maya. For half a heartbeat, the air didn't move. Her face had the wrong expression for a stranger and the right one for someone who knew my cereal brand, my spare key hiding spot, the shape of my baby's laugh before she grew into Zoe. She gave me a look I'd never seen from her, choosing which bone to break careful. Evan stood slightly behind her, hands in his pockets like a teenager at a parent-teacher conference. I heard myself laugh. It came out chipped. "Funny. Where is she?" Maya's voice was soft and surgical. "There is no she. Not the way you think." Evan flinched. Not at the words, at the pronoun. Behind them, our hostess registered that the rom-com had turned into something else and drifted away. Marco, broad-shouldered in a mechanic's jacket, knuckles oil-scarred, materialized near the entrance. He'd followed at a distance like we'd planned, then stopped when he saw who the second shadow was. He looked at Maya. He looked at me. He looked at Evan the way a boxer studies tape. "Sit," I said. I didn't recognize my own voice. We took the 4 chairs like actors who'd missed the rehearsal. Candlelight flickered between us. "I'll start," Maya said, palms flat on the linen. She always did this in group projects, preempt the chaos by taking the first blow. "I told you we should get the truth tonight." "That wasn't a trick." "But it's not the truth you thought." "You changed the contact name," I said. It wasn't a question, just the puzzle piece that finally snapped into place. Maya's eyes flicked to Evan. He stared at the candle. "On his phone," she said. "Months ago. After it started." He thought keeping me as Maya was reckless. He was right. A humorless smile. So I became S. Torres, vendor. I remembered the selfies, cropped tight, no face fully visible, a bathroom tile you could find in a dozen hotels. I'd filled in the rest because it was easier to hate a stranger than a history. My stomach dropped in a new direction, like a ride changing tracks mid-descent. Why Sophia? I asked, my throat thick. Because Sophia manages the event accounts, Evan said, finding a little of his pitch voice. She's a contractor. She books rooms, reservations. It was, cover. What about the texts from her number? I asked, heat cutting through the fog. The actual phone. The hotel charge screenshots. Maya winced. She lent me her iPad twice when mine died. It's synced to her number. Stupid, I know. I told myself it was temporary, then I kept telling myself that. She unfolded the napkin like she wanted to make a crane and fly out of the room. I am so sorry. The apology landed on the table and lay there, small and inadequate, like a napkin someone dropped. Marco leaned forward. So you're saying you used my sister as a mask, he said. His voice was quiet and carried. For the first time, Evan looked directly at him, at the name stitched above his pocket, Campos. Your sister? I said, dizzy. You're Marco Campos, he said. Sophia's brother, not her husband, not her anything else. He cut his eyes at me, not cruel, just sharp. You pulled pictures from a birthday album and wrote a whole story. I get it. I would have, too. Heat flooded my face. The kid in the soccer uniform, the stew caption. I'd built a family tree from one post and colored it with my fear. Now the branches snapped. Marco turned his attention back to Evan and Maya. You dragged her name into this. Into your, whatever. He tapped the table once, a controlled strike. She's not even in town this month. She's in San Diego on a conference. That reservation under her account? That's policy. Vendors hold the card, clients reimburse. You two tucked yourselves in its shadow because you wanted to be small and unfindable. No one breathed. I thought about the watch at 2:17 a.m., the nightstand light. The message I'd stared at until every letter bleached white, room 406. Same. I wanted to ask if that had been Maya, too. If the favorite Evan was tasting wasn't a dessert but the thing that made me stop telling him stories in the dark because he already had someone listening. Why? I asked finally, the words simple and ragged. Not to Evan, to her. The person who had taught me to make boxed brownies taste like a bakery by whisking an egg for an extra 30 seconds. Maya swallowed. Because I was lonely, she said, and the honesty cut worse than a fancy lie. I watched you two fall apart in inches. The don't wait ups, the lunches that turned into workouts, the politeness. He came to me to plan your anniversary last year and we talked for 3 hours about how to fix it. And then, she looked ashamed of the next part before she said it. And then he started coming to me for the parts you stopped giving him. And I took them. Because I wanted to feel chosen by anyone. The room hummed. Flatware chimed. In the corner, someone laughed too loudly. The world had the audacity to continue. Evan's jaw worked. I didn't plan to love her, he said, and even he heard how cheap it sounded. He tried again. I didn't plan anything. I just kept not choosing. And then the choices made me. You kept choosing her, I said. I kept not choosing to stop, he said, which somehow made it more unforgivable. Maya blinked hard. I wanted to tell you. Tonight. I wanted it to be. I don't know. She almost laughed. Clean? Consequences with a napkin and a mint. But there's more. At this point the word more felt like a threat. Marco went very still. Evan's head lifted, alert. Maya exhaled. I'm late, she said. Late, like the kind of late you count on a calendar and don't say out loud. I don't know if it's stress or I took a test at lunch. It wasn't definitive. I need a doctor. I wasn't going to drop it like a grenade, but here we are. The candle hissed. Someone opened the front door and a slice of winter climbed under the tablecloth to sit on my knees. I expected to scream. I expected to break the glass, the plates, the pretty little narrative that they'd built out of lies and wishful thinking. Instead, something colder and clearer took the chair beside me. Okay, I said, and my voice didn't shake. Then we're going to do this by numbers. They both looked at me, startled, like I'd changed languages. 1, I said, ticking it off on my finger. Tomorrow, I'm calling a lawyer. This, I pointed at the table, at the alcove, at the people who had put me here, changes the math. 2, you are both going to leave Sophia out of any story you tell to anyone, or Marco will make sure your employer understands liability. Marco's smile didn't reach his eyes. Happily. 3. I continued, we're getting the dates straight. If there's a pregnancy, we establish paternity, and we do it without me holding your hands in waiting rooms. Evan's mouth fell open. He looked 10 years older than he had at 7:58. And 4, I said, voice steady, you will both answer one question right now, and you will answer it like the people you pretend to be when you look in mirrors. When were you going to tell me? Before or after you made another reservation? Maya broke first. Never, she whispered. I wasn't brave enough. Evan closed his eyes. After the holidays, he said. I thought finishing the year would make it easier. I stared at Evan until he looked away. You don't get to use a calendar as an alibi, I said. Not anymore. I stood so fast the chair legs shrieked on tile. The whole alcove went silent, then pretended again. I looked at Maya, my friend with my spare key. I looked at Evan, my husband with a stranger's face. And then I looked at Marco, who had shown up for his sister's name and found himself enlisted in my war. Will you walk me out? I asked him. He nodded and rose. As we stepped past the frosted glass, Evan's voice chased me, frayed. Where are you going? Home, I said. To pack a bag. To change the locks. To teach our daughter that love doesn't mean letting people decide who you are. I didn't look back. Outside, the night was clear enough to see my breath like speech I hadn't used yet. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and the rubbery sweetness of Zoe's slime kit. I hadn't slept, I'd made lists. At 6:40 a.m. I was cutting strawberries into quarters while Zoe practiced reading a paragraph about a lighthouse. She kept tripping over persistent. Same. Evan's key scraped the front door at 7:05. He paused, seeing my overnight bag by the stairs. His tie wasn't on yet. His hair looked like he'd pressed both hands into it and then changed his mind. Zoe, I said lightly, grab your library book. We're dropping you early. She hopped down, sticky fingers on my wrist. Evan cleared his throat. Can we talk alone for a second? We'll have 100 seconds, I said, not looking up. None today. His jaw flexed. I'll pick her up from school, he said, aiming it at me like a concession. No, I said. You won't. He swallowed whatever he'd planned to say next and kissed Zoe's head like he had rights to do it. He did. That was the ruin of it. On the drive, Zoe asked why my bag was out. Work thing, I said. I might stay at Aunt Maya's tonight. The lie scorched as it left my mouth. She brightened. I love Aunt Maya. She said it with the simplicity of sunrise. I gripped the wheel until my fingers ached. What do you love about her? I asked, careful. She draws horses like they're moving, she said. And she knows the secret door under the stairs at school. A beat. Did you know she likes the lemon cookies in the office? She told me. Something shifted under the floor of the car. When did you see her at school, Bug? Zoe shrugged the way 8-year-olds do when time is one long afternoon. The day I lost my math sheet and cried. Aunt Maya picked me up. She had a tote bag with oranges and a flashlight. We made shadow birds on the wall when the hallway got dark. She grinned, proud of remembering the details I could drown in. My mouth went dry. Who told you she was Aunt Maya? Daddy, she said, uncomplicated. At the school office, the linoleum glared under winter light. The secretary, Mrs. Decker, smiled at Zoe's braids, at the library book she'd tucked like a pet. Dropping early, she chirped. Updating pickup permissions, I said. My voice sounded reasonable, which felt like a miracle I'd pay for later. My husband may have added someone. I need to adjust. Her smile flickered. She turned the binder around, open to the R's. Under Reed, Zoe, a neatly typed list. Me, Evan, Grandma Reed, Maya Patel. A box next to each name, ID on file. Next to Maya's, a date, 2 weeks ago, and a scrawled note that caught the light, introduced as Aunt. Cleared. My stomach dropped so fast I had to put a hand on the counter to steady myself. I didn't approve this, I said, keeping my tone almost conversational. Please remove Ms. Patel immediately. Mrs. Decker's face softened. I'll need both parents' consent to change the list, she said. That's our policy. Is it your policy to allow strangers to be presented as family? I asked, the conversational tone cracking on the last word. Her eyebrows knit. She had a letter, she said, sliding a photocopy to me. Evan's handwriting, bulletproof in a way my marriage wasn't. Maya Patel is Zoe's godmother and may retrieve her from school when needed. Evan Reed. He'd printed it on company letterhead like authority could make it true. Zoe hummed, tracing the lighthouse on her book. I breathed once, through my teeth, and smiled at Mrs. Decker. I'm invoking the custody red flag, I said, using the phrase Maya and I had joked about years ago as a hypothetical we'd never need. Temporarily restrict pickup to me until further notice. Mrs. Decker hesitated, then slid the red tab into the binder's top like a flare. This gives us 24 hours, she said quietly. After that, I'll need documentation. You'll have it, I said. I hugged Zoe fast, breathed in the kid shampoo smell that made me want to forgive the whole world, and left before my resolve could ask for mercy. Outside, I called Marco. He picked up on the third ring, the clatter of a service bay in the background. He added her to the school list, I said. 2 weeks ago. Marco swore softly, like he was disappointed in gravity. My sister's name is still in their mess, he said. I've got HR at Evan's company calling me today. Compliance flagged vendor charges last quarter. Sophia's clean, but they want statements. Evan's going to feel heat. Good, I said. It tasted like pennies. At 9:10, I sat in a lawyer's conference room that smelled like paper and old carpet. The partner, a woman in her 50s with a wedding band and the posture of a metronome, read my bullet point timeline without interrupting. When I finished, she capped her pen and looked at me. You have leverage, she said. You also have a child. Leverage is not the same as satisfaction. I'm not here for satisfaction, I said. I'm here to stop the bleeding. We talked custody, financials, what adultery does and doesn't change in a no-fault state. She slid a packet toward me, emergency motion for temporary orders, including a school pickup restriction. We'll file today, she said, efficient without being cold. Expect counters. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I declined it. A second later, a text, you've been served. A photo of a man on my porch holding a manila envelope, time-stamped 9/24. I felt the floor tilt. May I? The lawyer asked, and I handed her the phone. She read the next text as it arrived, petition to freeze marital accounts to prevent waste. You are spending erratically. The words were a match flicked at gasoline. He moved first, she said evenly. It means he's scared. Sit tight. She dictated a response to my bank via her paralegal faster than I could form outrage. We'll oppose. Meanwhile, pull statements for the last 6 months. I opened the app. My chest compressed, multiple withdrawals at odd hours, not just dinners, payments to an apartment management company I'd never heard of. The address was uptown, close to the river walk. I clicked into one, holding deposit, Unit 5B. Looks like he's leasing, the lawyer said. That helps me argue intent. It helps me argue audacity, I said. My laugh sounded like a fork dropped on tile. Another buzz. This time the school. I answered. Hi, Ms. Reed, Mrs. Decker said, her voice pitched wrong. I just wanted to let you know that Ms. Patel is here to pick up Zoe for an early dentist appointment. There was a window of exactly 4 heartbeats where I could pretend I hadn't heard. It closed. Do not release my daughter, I said, each word separate as stones. You placed a red flag. I did, she said. I heard murmuring, a rustle, another voice in the background, low and moving. But Mr. Reed is here as well and has provided identification and the letter. He says he'll take her. I'm on my way, I said, already up, chair legs squealing. The lawyer stood with me, reading my face like a deposition. Do you want me there? She asked. Yes, I said. Bring the temporary order. We jogged to the elevators. I called Marco. School, I said. They're there. On my way, he said, no questions. Traffic decided to be biblical. Every yellow light in the city conspired to become red. The lawyer's Prius hummed steady, her hands at 10 and 2, a model of composure. Do not engage in the hallway, she said, calm cutting through the static in my chest. You speak to the administrator. Let me speak to your husband. At the school entrance, the world narrowed, the glass door with the buzz-in, the smell of disinfectant and crayons. In the office, Evan stood by the counter, tie on now, expression curated. Maya was beside him in a cardigan that made her look like a camp counselor. Zoe sat in one of the blue plastic chairs, swinging her feet, backpack already on. When she saw me, she rocketed up. Relief hit so hard my knees wobbled. I knelt to her, hands on her shoulders. Hey, Lighthouse, I said. Change of plans. Evan opened his mouth, but the lawyer slid in, a polite interceptor. Mr. Reed, she said with a professional smile. I'm counsel for Ms. Reed. The school has a temporary red flag and will honor it pending a court order we're filing today. She handed Mrs. Decker a copy with the kind of authority Evan likes to wear. Mrs. Decker looked at the heading, the signature lines, the stamp box. She nodded like a lifeguard blowing a whistle and looked at Evan. I can't release Zoe today, she said. Not to either of you, until we sort this. She'll stay in class. Maya glanced at me, a flick of pleading, of something that used to mean help. I turned to Zoe. I'll be at the gate at 3, I said. Ms. Decker is taking care of you until then. Zoe nodded solemnly, because 8-year-olds can pivot better than adults. She squeezed my hand, then went with the aide down the hall. As she disappeared, the air changed. A room that had been about a child reverted to being about adults. Evan's voice found me. We can't make a scene, he said. We're in a school. You made one 2 weeks ago when you changed her world without asking, I said. Maya's eyes were wet. I didn't mean. I raised a hand. Don't. Not here. Mrs. Decker cleared her throat, the universal sign of ceasefire. There's also one more thing, she said, looking apologetic to even bring it up. Zoe's emergency form was updated this morning at 7:32 a.m. with an additional notification number. It appears to be your attorney's office, Ms. Reed. My lawyer blinked. We didn't submit that, she said. Mrs. Decker slid a printout to the counter. The new number listed under notify in case of emergency wasn't the law firm's. It was a number I hadn't dialed in over a year, my mother's cell. The mother I hadn't spoken to since the day she told me marriage is about endurance, not happiness. Evan frowned. I didn't add that, he said. Maya shook her head. I didn't either. Mrs. Decker looked genuinely relieved to wash her hands of it. It was updated via parent portal by Guardian 2, she said. That would be the account registered to Zoe Reed. We all stared at the paper. She has a school Chromebook, Mrs. Decker said. Kids are fast. Sometimes they click around and Zoe can't spell Guardian, I said faintly. Most kids can copy-paste, Mrs. Decker replied. The room pulsed. My mother. A number I hadn't given Zoe, or maybe I had, once, for a summer day that never needed it. In the silence, my phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. I opened it without thinking. It was a photo. Zoe's art project, a collage lighthouse with a real battery-powered tea light taped behind the windows. And in the corner, a small, neat note written in my mother's hand, unmistakable, persistent. Beneath it, she called me last week. Said she's allowed to memorize numbers now. The twist hit like cold water. My daughter, finding leaks and plugging them on her own. My mother, already in the story I thought I'd kept her out of. Evan saw the message over my shoulder and went pale in a way I'd never seen. Not guilty, afraid. She's been talking to your mom, he said. Looks like, I said, the ground moving again. And apparently, she asked for help. My mother chose a coffee shop where the light was too honest. Winter noon poured across reclaimed wood tables, no shadows to hide in. She was already seated, hands wrapped around a mug she didn't drink. The last time we'd spoken, I'd hung up on her mid-sentence. Now she looked like a woman who'd waded through weather. I didn't expect you to text back, she said, standing halfway, then deciding against a hug we wouldn't know how to do. I didn't expect Zoe to have your number, I said. She asked for it, my mother replied. She said she's allowed to memorize now. She said you were busy at night, Daddy was working late, and the house felt like a boat. The check in my throat had edges. She called you because of us, I said. No one corrected me. My mother reached into her tote and pulled out a manila folder. Hers always looked the same, like there's a warehouse somewhere that prints mom evidence on the inside. She slid a stack of papers toward me. Start here. On top, a screenshot of a voicemail transcription from an unknown number. The school, Zoe had a hard time after lunch. We've moved her to the calm corner, authorized pickup as needed. Below it, a reply, from my email address, timestamped 4 months ago at 11:21 p.m. If there's ever an emergency, Maya Patel is cleared to pick up Zoe. She's family. It was followed by my signature block, the one with the cheerful quote I've since stopped believing. I didn't write this, I said, then hated how weak it sounded. You did, my mother said, not unkindly. You forwarded it to me the same night you forwarded the pediatrician's after-hours advice about Zoe's fever. You copied Evan. I don't remember, I said. I did remember the night, a metallic fear, a forehead that burned, Maya on my couch with a cool washcloth because Evan was at drinks. I remembered the gratitude that fogged everything. I'd said thank you with 1,000 exclamation points and probably with legal permission I didn't understand. A door in the past opened and a draft moved through the present. My mother continued, careful. 2 weeks ago, Evan brought your email to the school with his letter. He should have told you. He didn't. But the first domino was yours. The words found their mark, not as an absolution for him but as an indictment of my own inattention. I thought of my lecture in the office, policy and permissions, and felt my cheeks go hot. Somehow humiliation and fury can coexist without canceling each other out. So I gave him a knife, I said, and he waited 4 months to use it. My mother didn't argue. She turned over the next document, a form with my initials from the September open house, page 3 of a stack, additional authorized adults, optional. My handwriting, unmistakable, had added Maya Patel in the margin beside Grandma Reed. I remembered that night too, paperwork carousel, cookies, the teacher's slideshow about routines. I'd signed like a person who trusts that tomorrow is just Tuesday. My mother rested her palms flat on the table like she was bracing it, or me. You've survived a lot of just Tuesdays, she said. Sometimes that survival looks like autopilot. I waited for the lecture about endurance. She surprised me. I was wrong last time we spoke, she said quietly. Marriage is not endurance at any cost. It is not this. She flicked her eyes to the folder, to the email that might as well have tongues of fire. Zoe called me because she felt the floor dip. Smart girls look for handrails. I stared at the window where a bus hissed itself empty. Why did she send you that lighthouse photo? I asked. And the word persistent? She said her teacher told them that lighthouses keep shining even when the fog pretends there's no shore. My mother's mouth softened. She said she wanted to show you that she understood how to keep the light on by herself if she had to. My eyes burned in the embarrassing way that makes you look like your face forgot which muscles do what. I swallowed it back because there was more to get through. I found charges to an apartment, Unit 5B, I said. Did you know about that? My mother lifted another paper. Yes, she said, and the ground changed again. Because the leasing office called me last week to verify employment. Evan listed me as a personal reference. He told me you were taking space from each other. I didn't co-sign. I refused. But I kept the voicemail. She pressed her lips together. I thought he was staging a decent exit. I didn't know he was packing it with lies. I turned the page. There was the address, the rental office letterhead, the name on the application, not Evan. Not me. Maya Patel, it read. Evan had been making the payments, but the lease was in Maya's name. These withdrawals, I said, tapping my bank app screen in my mind, the holding deposit, the monthly hit, he's been funding her apartment. My mother nodded. And here's the twist that may actually serve you. She flipped to an email printout with a footer I recognized, Evan's company. Subject, compliance reminder, vendor-client boundaries. Buried in the CC line was a name I didn't know, corporate housing coordinator. The first sentence, any vendor relationship that includes personal housing support, directly or via client reimbursement, constitutes a conflict and is grounds for immediate termination. The email was 2 months old. He forwarded this to me, my mother said, when I told him he needed to stop lying to Zoe. He wanted to prove he'd handled it by moving Maya to a separate address not tied to work bookings. She lifted her gaze to mine. He thinks he's clever. My phone vibrated on cue. Marco. I picked up. Update, he said, no hello. Compliance met with Evan. They know about the apartment. Sophia brought receipts, literal ones. They offered Evan a deal, cooperate, take the fall for the vendor charges, keep his benefits, or they escalate to the board and the DA for misuse of funds. My chest went cold. Look at your bank again, Marco said. Those holding deposit payments? One of them was reimbursed through his expense account the same day, coded as client entertainment lodging. That's fraud in my dictionary. Might be in theirs too. I pressed speaker. My mother listened, eyes sharp now in a way that had helped me find lost earrings and better jobs. Marco, she said, stepping into the call without apology. Does the company know the lease is in Maya's name? They do now, he said. And here's your twist inside the twist. The building manager just told me 5B has 2 key fobs assigned. Evan has one. The other isn't Maya's. Who then? I asked. Your name, he said. Key fob issued open house night. The manager scanned licenses at a leasing fair table next to the PTA bake sale. You signed a community perks sheet for early access to resident events when you toured the River Walk as part of the school fundraiser. They cross-promoted. Your ID ended up in their system. Somebody, guess who, used it to authorize a second key after hours. I flashed back, apparent night wine tasting at the River Walk, clipboards circulating like communion. I'd signed something without reading because Zoe wanted to feed ducks and the raffle line was long. So he built a paper trail that makes it look like I'm on the lease, I said, stomach dropping into the old elevator shaft feeling. And then filed to freeze accounts claiming I was spending erratically. He's creating waste and pinning it to me. Looks like, Marco said, but it's sloppy. The timestamp on the fob issuance is 11:58 p.m. on a Sunday. Front office was closed. That means a resident did it. 5B, he whistled, low. You get an affidavit from the manager, you've got leverage he doesn't know you have. My lawyer texted mid-call, filing accepted. Temporary order served by 1:30 p.m. I ended the call and let the silence expand enough to hold all the new angles. Across from me, my mother exhaled a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it since I was 22. You have two fights, she said. The public one and the private one. We'll pick which to win first. I almost smiled. Who's we? I asked. It came out half joke, half prayer. She didn't flinch. Zoe called me, she said. You can be furious at me and still let me stand between you and the next bad thing. Endurance isn't martyrdom. It's scaffolding. I looked at the folder again, at my signatures where they shouldn't be and the keys I didn't know I held. The picture I had of my enemies and allies had been redrawn by an 8-year-old with a lighthouse. Okay, I said. We start with the building manager, then HR, then school, then Evan. And Maya, my mother asked, not a trap, just inventory. She gets a doctor, I said, and a choice. But she doesn't get my kid or my name. We stood. Outside, the river looked like brushed steel and the ducks were pieces of punctuation skimming across it. As we walked, my phone buzzed, a new text from a number I didn't recognize. It was a photo of a key fob on my kitchen counter. The caption, you left this at my place last night. I'm at 5B if you want to swing by. I stopped so fast a jogger swerved around me, annoyed. The fob in the photo had my name on a sticker in Maya's handwriting. Except the counter? Not mine. Not hers. It was Evan's. I didn't go alone. Marco met me on the river walk with 2 coffees and the kind of calm people where when they're not sure if they'll need to be a witness or a wall. The building's lobby smelled like eucalyptus and new carpet. A staging fern in the corner wore dust like bad makeup. The text with the fob photo sat open on my screen. You left this at my place last night. I'm at 5B if you want to swing by. The countertop in the photo was ours, white quartz with the nick where Zoe dropped a can of chickpeas. The sticker on the fob had my name in Maya's looping, unmistakable handwriting. I typed, who is this? The typing bubble appeared, went away, returned. Manager, the reply came. Marisol. Please come. The elevator chimed us up to 5 like it was just another Tuesday. Marisol met us at the end of the hall. Mid-40s, a braid, a key ring heavy enough to anchor a small boat. She didn't shake hands. She scanned faces like a bouncer. You're Zoe's mom, she said, not a question. I am, I said. That text, why was my fob on my kitchen counter? Because your husband brought me a proof of residency packet last night, she said, voice low. He wanted me to pre-verify his household for a lease audit. He set it on the counter to make copies, then got a call. I took a photo of the fob before he came back. Something felt wrong. My stomach did an old, unwelcome trick, dropping with the elevator that wasn't moving. He used my ID to authorize a second key, I said. Marisol nodded once, brisk. At 11:58 p.m. Sunday. Front office is closed then. He used the resident kiosk digital guest access for Unit 5B. There's security video. I printed the log. She lifted a folder and I had that surreal flash of déjà vu, another woman, another manila folder, another train of dates turning into a map. She unlocked 5B. The door opened to a room dressed like an Instagram apartment, gray sofa, white throw, bowl of green apples so glossy they looked theoretical. No photos. No toothbrushes. The kitchen smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, the same brand I used. My life's scent turned against me. Marco did a slow 360. Staged, he muttered. Like the unit wants to be anyone's. Marisol set the folder on the counter, no nick, and tapped the top page. Lease in Ms. Patel's name. Paid by Mr. Reed's card on autopay. Addendum 2 weeks ago adding a co-occupant, no last name listed, just Zoe. She looked up at me, apology in her eyes like a storm warning. That's why I texted you. I don't add minors to occupancy without both guardians. He told me you were on board, the paperwork said otherwise. The room tilted. I put a hand on the fake marble island to write it out. He's building a case that our daughter resides here, I said. Status quo, split domicile, whatever the custody blogs call it. Marisol flipped the page. And this, she said, pointing to a grainy color still. The camera angle looked down the hall at 11:58 p.m. Sunday, Evan in a hoodie, face half visible, standing at the kiosk with someone behind him, back to the lens. Shorter, a bun, cardigan. The outline snapped into place in my bones before my brain agreed. Maya, I said, and then wished I were wrong. Could be, Marisol said. Could also be any woman with a bun. I don't guess. I keep logs. Marco leaned over the photo. He didn't swear. He didn't need to. On the dining table, cheap oak, pretty lighting, sat a neat stack of paper, a school calendar with Zoe's class circled in pink, the pickup map highlighted, a printout of the school's parent portal login instructions. Under it, a family court pamphlet, temporary custody orders, establishing a routine. My name was written on a post-it in the corner. Not mine. His. The heat that rose then wasn't rage. It was something colder and more oxygen efficient. A plan wants air, not fire. What's the fob for? I asked. Marisol slid it over. Access to the building, garage, gym, she said. It's registered to read, Zoe. Your ID was scanned at a school open house when the leasing table was doing a community partnership promo. We cross-referenced leads later. Your husband used your scanned ID to add the child. Technically permissible if the co-occupant is a dependent. Ethically. I texted you. She looked at Marco like she was measuring whether to say the next part. He nodded. I didn't ask why they understood each other. There's one more, she said, pulling a small zip bag from her pocket like it contained a butterfly. Inside, a tiny black disc. Camera. Hidden. Found under the vent grill. Whoever placed it didn't understand our HVAC schedule. Maintenance heard it rattle. My skin prickled. Audio? Probably, Marisol said. We don't guess. We hand it to counsel. If he's trying to record you in here, without consent, it's a problem for him. Marco looked at me. He's staging this to claim you've been using 5B, he said. The fob, the logs, the child's name. Then he catches you on camera walking into your place. He paints you erratic, unstable, moving Zoe around. And he files to freeze accounts because I'm spending erratically, I said. The word erratically had become the room's humidity. I took out my phone, opened the message, stared at the photo again. The sticker with my name, the counter nick, literal proof that the fob hadn't been in 5B last night at all. He mislabeled his own lie. I need copies of everything, I said to Marisol. Logs, the still, the kiosk video, the addendum with Zoe, the fob registry. And I need a letter from you stating that any residency was fabricated and that you contacted me as soon as you realized a minor was being added without both guardians. You'll have it by 3 p.m., she said, not asking who my lawyer was because she already knew. She slid me a spare sheet from the folder. You should also know there's a second addendum drafted but not submitted. Pet authorization, small dog. It landed later, in a place I didn't know was tender. He was going to give Zoe a dog to anchor the narrative. She's always wanted one, I said, and hated how small my voice sounded. Marisol's mouth tugged. Kids shouldn't be bait, she said simply. We turned to leave. That's when the door across the hall opened. A woman stepped out holding a bag of recycling. Late 30s, sharp bob, teacher lanyard still on. She clocked Marisol, then me. Her eyes narrowed in recognition I didn't expect. You're Zoe's mom, she said. Her voice rang with cafeteria acoustics. It was Mrs. Decker, the school secretary, without her desk. Every line in the scene rearranged itself. You live here? I asked. 5A, she said. Since July. She glanced at the open door of 5B, the styled sofa, the folder on the counter. They use that one for overflow and corporate stays. Stuff comes and goes. She hesitated. He asked me for a favor last week. Who? Marco asked, though we all knew. Mr. Reed, she said. He wanted to know the exact language to add an authorized adult without triggering the red flag. I told him there wasn't a way. Next day, the system showed the Guardian 2 update with your mother's number and a pending pickup change. I flagged it. She swallowed. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I see a lot of parents try to turn the office into a battlefield. Your kid doesn't need shrapnel. The hallway hummed with vent noise and the distant thump of a treadmill in the building gym. I thanked her. She nodded, took her recycling to the chute, disappeared back into 5A like a magician putting the world back together after a trick. My phone buzzed again. A new message from Evan. Let's be adults. Meet at the house at 6. Without your lawyer. Then, almost as an afterthought, Zoe will be there. I promised her a surprise. I stared at the screen until the words bled a little and sharpened again. The dog, I said. Marco's jaw tightened. He's going to put a bow on a problem and call it a solution. I texted my lawyer. Need emergency hearing tomorrow. Evidence incoming. Then I wrote to Evan, "We'll be there at 6. With witnesses." I added one more to Marisol, "Can you bring the log copies to my house at 5:30? She nodded. "I'll bring the camera, too," she said. "And for what it's worth, your kid came by the office last week with a lighthouse picture. Said, in case my mom needs proof I can find North. Smart girl." The elevator doors closed on the staged apples and the fake throw, and my reflection in the stainless steel looked like someone I hadn't been yet, tired, yes, but aiming. Outside, the river was a darker steel, and ducks stitched along it like punctuation marks to a sentence I wasn't done writing. At 5:29, the house looked like a courtroom that had borrowed my living room. My mother set out glasses of water the way she used to for debate club nights. My lawyer stacked copies, building logs, the kiosk still at 11:58 p.m., the addendum with Zoe, the letter from Marisol. Marco stood at the window, arms crossed, a quiet metronome. Marisol arrived at 5:31 with a zipped evidence pouch and a face that said she'd seen better men make worse choices. "Audio, too," she said, tapping the pouch. "HVAC guys found a second device in the return vent at 5B. It paired to a phone labeled ER guest. Timestamps line up with your husband's visits." I nodded. The only thing shaking was the candle flame my mother insisted on lighting, not for mood, she said, for steadiness. Across the table, my lawyer slid me a short script. "You ask questions. Let the documents do the yelling." At 6:02, Evan pulled into the driveway. Zoe hopped out first, backpack thumping. Behind her, a small dog in a teal harness bounced like a punctuation mark. Evan followed, carrying a pink leash and a smile built for Christmas cards. Zoe burst in, flushed. "Surprise!" I bent to her level. The dog, somewhere between terrier and teddy bear, licked the air near my hand. "What's her name?" I asked. "Luna," Zoe said, delighted. "Because she's small and bright and follows me around." "She's beautiful," I said honestly. I looked up at Evan. "Where did you get her?" "A rescue," he said. "They were flexible. Paperwork's in the car." Marisol's eyebrow twitched a millimeter. "Rescues usually need landlord approval," she said pleasantly. "And Unit 5B is no pets without both guardians' consent." Evan's smile thinned. He clocked Marisol, then Marco, then my lawyer, recalculating the room. "We said without the lawyer," he murmured to me. "You said a lot of things," I answered. "We're doing this with witnesses." We sat. Zoe knelt on the floor with Luna and a bag of treats, the kind of joy that makes adults want to make better choices. My mother took her to the kitchen island with crayons and a promise of hot cocoa after the boring talk. Evan opened with a version of reason. "We both made mistakes," he said. "Let's agree the marriage is over and design a plan without making each other unemployable." "Design implies honesty," my lawyer said. "Let's start there." I slid the first document across, the fob registry with Reed, Zoe, the kiosk log, the 11:58 still. "You added our daughter as a co-occupant at 5B, I said. "Without me. It's not a crime to have a place my kid can sleep," he said evenly. "It is a problem when you fabricate status quo," my lawyer replied, gentle as a door closing. "Especially when you've installed recording devices to manufacture evidence." She nodded to Marisol, who unzipped the pouch like a magician about to pull out the part where the trick goes wrong. Evan's eyes flicked to the small disc. "You can't prove." Marisol plugged the drive into my laptop. The audio file popped up, a fan hum, footsteps, a male voice, Evan's, low and coaxing. "Okay, run it again," he said, and Maya's voice, tired, complied. "Zoe sleeps here sometimes. Zoe has her own toothbrush here. Zoe feels safe here." A pause. "Evan again, good. Now slower, like you're just remembering." He reached for the laptop. Marco's hand, calm, landed on the table between them. Evan withdrew, not scared, exactly, surrounded. I slid the second stack, the expense report with client entertainment lodging, the compliance memo about personal housing support, the lease in Maya's name with his card on autopay. "We're past mistakes," I said. "We're at fraud." His jaw clicked. "You don't want to make me your enemy," he said, the old pitch in his tone. "I know where the bodies are buried." "There are no bodies," my mother said from the island, without looking up from Zoe's drawing. "There are receipts. And we have more." The doorbell rang. Evan flinched. "Who else is coming to our family meeting?" Mrs. Decker stepped in, hair still wet from a shower, a folder under her arm. "I'm off at 6, she said, apologetic and firm. "But I thought I should return your voicemail, Ms. Reed." She glanced at Evan. "And to clear up any misunderstandings about school policy." Evan laughed without warmth. You invited the front office to my house? You invited the front office to 5B, I said. Consider this balanced. Mrs. Decker set a paper on the table, the parent portal log. Guardian 2 didn't update on its own, she said. The IP address points to the Riverwalk Network, Unit 5B. Someone added Grandma's number as a workaround to make later changes look cooperative. Marco's phone buzzed. He held it to his ear, listened, then looked at me. HR just emailed me, he said softly, like a twist lowered instead of thrown. Evan's been terminated. Immediate. They're pulling the board into a special meeting for the reimbursement fraud. And, they CC'd legal. Evan stayed very still. The room changed, even the air, the smell of lemons and dog and paper edged by something iron. For a moment I saw the boy he'd been, the man he tried to be, the choices that calcified into consequence. And then the final knock came. Maya stood in the doorway, pale, cardigan wrinkled, a brown envelope in her hand. She looked at me, not pleading this time, just worn. I needed to say this in front of everyone, she said. I had my appointment. I'm not pregnant. The sentence loosened something in my chest I hadn't admitted was there. Relief arrived with an echo of grief. For what, I wasn't sure. Maya continued, voice steadying. And I went to HR. I gave them my messages. And this. She slid a printed email onto the table. Subject, settlement. It was from Evan to her at 1:07 a.m. after Mercer's, promising to cover rent until Q3, urging her to stick to the Zoe sleeps here line and help me get temp custody to avoid support spikes. The last line, will be a family faster if she looks unstable. No one spoke. Even Luna stopped panting. Maya swallowed. I was stupid, she said to me, and selfish. But I won't be cruel. I told HR everything. I came here to tell you I'm also giving a statement to your lawyer. She turned to Evan. I thought you loved me. But you loved the story where you were the hero and the accountant. He exhaled, a sound like a tire losing air. Zoe patted in, holding a drawing. Mom? She asked, eyes bright and careful at the same time. Can I show you the lighthouse now? I crouched. The picture glowed with the tiny battery tea light behind the windows. She'd drawn a boat with 3 figures, one tall, one medium, one small, and a dog with ears like triangles. The lighthouse beam cut clean across the page. What's this dot? I asked, pointing to a small black circle she glued near the roof. The secret eye, she said. You told me once that grown-ups need to remember they're being watched. By themselves. A laugh broke out of me before I could stop it, ridiculous and wet. My mother pressed a tissue into my hand like we'd rehearsed it. Behind me, paper rustled, adult voices lowered. The meeting of consequences continued. I stood and faced Evan. Here's how this goes, I said. I file for temporary primary custody and exclusive use of the house. You get supervised visits until we know you won't game the system with our child. You hand over every key, including the fob you labeled with our daughter's name. You sign a consent to release records to my counsel, leasing, HR, expense reports. And you apologize to Zoe in language she understands. Not tonight, you don't get to use a dog as an apology. Tomorrow, with a counselor present. He looked at the stack of evidence, the audio, the logs, the email, the calendar with pink circles he'd printed to look paternal. He looked at Maya, who had chosen to leave her spot in his narrative. He looked at my mother, who had returned to stand between me and the next bad thing. He looked at Marco, whose jaw said try me. And then he looked at our daughter, kneeling by Luna, humming to a light she'd taped into a paper tower. I'm sorry, he said, not to me, not yet, to Zoe. Simple, unadorned, the first true thing he'd said in months. It wasn't enough and it was a start. We let the silence hold it. My lawyer slid the consent forms forward. Evan signed. Marco took photos. Mrs. Decker left with a nod and a promise to hold the red flag until the court order hit her inbox. Marisol handed me the evidence receipt like a baton. After they left, the house exhaled. My mother poured cocoa. Zoe fed Luna a treat shaped like a bone. I sat on the floor because chairs felt too formal for the person I wanted to be next. Hey, Lighthouse, I said. How about a test? Her eyes lit. What kind? Tomorrow, I said, we go to the river. We'll stand on the bank and see how far you can see the light from the bridge. We'll measure it with steps. And we'll draw it. And if we can't see it, we'll remember it's there anyway. She nodded solemnly, like a girl who has already learned that faith sometimes looks like counting. That night, I changed the locks. I put the spare key in a new place. I wrote a list on the fridge that started with call the therapist and ended with teach Zoe to make boxed brownies that taste like a bakery. Before bed, I texted Maya 2 things, thank you for the statement and find a better story. She replied, you too. On my nightstand, my phone lit at 2:17 a.m. A reflex alarm I forgot I'd turned off. I deleted it. The room held its own light.